Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the cornerstone assets of your dynasty team right now. Let's go through and let's look at these quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, this is what you build your Superflex rosters around. This will work for your Superflex leagues or your one quarterback format. But obviously, if you're playing Dynasty, you should be doing two things. A, you should be subscribing to the channel, and B, you should be playing in Superflex. But before we get into anything, like I said, if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, make sure you subscribe. If you have not done so already, hit that like button. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comment section. And in that comment section, you can find a link to Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog Fantasy, you can check out all these cool player props. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And only with promo code FLOCK are you going to get this a free Patrick Mahomes line, 0.5 passing yards. Could not be more excited to get y'all that. Like I said, it's only for people who use promo code FLOCK. But I think that should be it. And speaking of the devil, let's go and let's talk about Patrick Mahomes at number 1. So Mahomes is a quarterback that coming into the season, most people had behind Allen. Most people had behind Justin Herbert. I mean, hell, on Underdog, where we drafted over 700 teams, Patrick Mahomes, I believe, was my second most drafted player behind Josh Jacobs, because there he was going as like the quarterback 5, quarterback 6. With Mahomes, I think we can safely say that people disrespected the man coming into the season. What's really funny, too, is obviously most people were worried about Tyreek Hill going over to Miami, and you kind of had to pick a side, right? Did you think that Patrick Mahomes elevated Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes made Tyreek Hill who he was? Or did you think Tyreek Hill was the elite level wide receiver and he's what made the Kansas City Chiefs offense go from being very good to elite? Apparently, both things can be true. Apparently, Tyreek Hill can be an elite level wide receiver in his own right, and Patrick Mahomes can be straight up dominant. If we're looking at what we've had so far this season with Patrick Mahomes, just the consistency with the passing volume, 360 yards, 235, 262, 249, 292, 338, 423, 446, 331, 329, and 320. Most games, Patrick Mahomes giving you 300 passing yards. I mean, he gives you about as many 400 passing yard games as only 200. Right now, he has 29 passing touchdowns. And what's very interesting with Mahomes, and if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I think you would almost wish that he didn't do this much, but he runs the ball. Obviously, he's not Jalen Hurts. He's not Lamar Jackson. We'll talk about them later on. But he's not giving you just a goose egg with the rushing yardage. He's not prime Brady, prime Breeze. The man has 274 rushing yards so far this season. That's actually a pretty big deal. If Mahomes can consistently get to 350, 400 rushing yards in an individual year. Let me just get out this little calculator here to show how big of a deal that is, right? If Mahomes gets to 400 rushing yards in a season, that's going to be a whopping 40 points, ladies and gentlemen. That is equivalent to an additional 1,000 passing yards that you're just getting on the Patrick Mahomes statistics. Obviously, got to be worried that Travis Kelce is old as dirt, but hell, he's doing just fine this year. I think Mahomes is a locked and loaded quarterback 1 rest of season. Now going over to 2, we already have Josh Allen in the same tier. Now with Josh Allen, I mean, the turnovers have been very, very high so far this season. I mean, maybe from a real life perspective where Josh Allen was the favorite to be MVP coming into the season, you're a little disappointed with the 11 interceptions with some fumble, blah, blah, blah. Does not matter in that Josh Allen, just like Patrick Mahomes, is giving you 2 things. He's giving you the consistent passing volume as well as rushing upside. Josh Allen actually gives you significantly more rushing upside than Patrick Mahomes, where Allen has 561 rushing yards already. Josh Allen has 5 rushing touchdowns already. Now, I don't know. Maybe we are thinking too much about this, and maybe we're diving in a little too far. I just think Mahomes is maybe going to be able to keep his play at this true generational level for a little longer than Allen, because his game relies less on athleticism and more just on his pure arm talent. Let me know what you think about Mahomes, Allen 1-2, because obviously Allen has more rushing upside and he's been phenomenal from a fantasy football standpoint. we're just splitting hairs between these two guys. Let me know who you want between these two, though. And dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Justin Herbert at 3. Some people are trying to get cute and have Justin Herbert as the 101 coming into this season. And I will be fair to Justin Herbert here. The reason that we are still going to have him at 3 is he's kind of gotten shafted this year. You had Keenan Allen going down week 1. We are just now getting Keenan Allen back in this offense at 100%. Then as soon as you're about to get Keenan Allen back in, you have Mike Williams go down. You have to play, a decent little stretch there with no Keenan, with no Mike Williams. Joshua Palmer is your leading wide receiver. Remember, everybody laughed at the Chargers when they took Joshua Palmer back in the 3rd round of that 2020 draft. 99% of people who play Dynasty, including myself, where I pride myself going deep, had no idea who Joshua Palmer was until he was selected in the 3rd round. So Herbert hasn't been put in a phenomenal situation with his weapons so far this season. I think we can blame a lot of his struggles on that. In my opinion, it's impressive to see what Justin Herbert's been able to do despite the lack of weapons in Los Angeles. It's interesting to think about how they could potentially make a move for a wide receiver this offseason, though. While Mike Williams was drafted in 2017, Mike Williams is a little bit older. Mike Williams stayed all 4 years at Clemson. Keenan Allen was drafted back in 2013. These weapons are very old. Obviously, there are no free agent wide receivers that are appealing. The leading wide receiver for the Chargers in Austin Eckler at the same time stayed all 4 years in college and was drafted in 2017, so he's on the older side as well. Really hope that they're able to figure out the skill position group to put around Justin Herbert, but someone that already has that skill position group figured out for the long term will be Joe Burrow at 4. Now, I understand why maybe you want to go through and have Joe Burrow ahead of Justin Herbert. And honestly, if you wanted to, I'm not going to argue with you. I think maybe I move Joe Burrow ahead of Justin Herbert tomorrow. But if you're looking at Herbert, we have him attached to Chase, attached to Higgins. Even Boyd's a fine option. And if we're looking at Burrow compared to Herbert, the rushing yardage difference isn't massive. I would say that you are going to have Herbert running the ball just a little bit more than Joe Burrow. It's pretty much identical up until this point this season. However, I would be a little, and I just repeat, a little bit concerned about Joe Burrow tearing his knee up 2 years ago. And obviously, I'm just trying to find the smallest details to separate these two quarterbacks here. But Burrow's been phenomenal. And as we go through and talk about this, you know what? Based on T. Higgins and Jamar Chase only getting better and being attached to Joe Burrow for the long term, I think we probably have to move Joe Burrow ahead of Justin Herbert. This is going to be something, I'm going back and forth with nonstop. And let's go with Joe Burrow ahead of Justin Herbert. Let me know what you think. And then at 5, we're going to go to DeShaun Watson. I know this may be a little aggressive for everybody here. We have yet to see DeShaun Watson play this season. DeShaun Watson has not played in a very, very long time. But, hell, if we go through and just look at the career average for DeShaun Watson from an adjusted yards per pass attempt standpoint, he is at 8.6. Let's look at how many quarterbacks that would be ahead of this year. NFL leaders in passing. Pull this up with Pro Football Reference. And I want to remind everybody, we are looking at Deshaun Watson's career average, not his best year. No, his career average, 8.6. Here are the quarterbacks that are ahead of that this season. Tua Tagovailoa, we'll talk about him in a second, and Jalen Hurts. That's it. We've seen that from Deshaun Watson over a large sample. He's going into an offense that has an established running game, that has a great offensive line. I would make the argument the situation's better in Cleveland that he's stepping into than he used to see with Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson since 2017, if you look at his fantasy points per game and where he's finished, he's had a floor and ceiling combination that only Patrick Mahomes can match. Deshaun Watson's very young. He's about, 14 months older than Joe Burrow. I'm buying into Deshaun Watson as a top 5 QB. And at 6, we're going to go Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, unbelievable. Jalen Hurts, you knew he was going to crush in redraft. I didn't necessarily know what we were going to get in terms of the job security long term. I thought that with Jalen Hurts, a phenomenal fantasy option. I wasn't willing to buy into him as an elite level real life quarterback. But nope, Jalen Hurts, elite level real life quarterback. I think we can safely say that at this point. Obviously with Jalen Hurts as well, gonna give you the elite rushing ceiling. I mean, if we're looking at what we have so far this season as a rusher, the man's already gone for almost 600 rushing yards. The man has 8 rushing touchdowns. If you were playing redraft, you'd rather have Jalen Hurts over DeShaun Watson, over Joe Burrow, over Justin Herbert. In Dynasty, I'd assume that those other quarterbacks that don't rely as much on their athleticism maybe have a little more longevity. I know most people are going to want Jalen Hurts at 5, though. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Lamar Jackson. Very similar to Jalen Hurts here. With Lamar Jackson, wins on the ground, better fantasy option than real-life quarterback. Now, the issue with Lamar is we don't necessarily know what the situation is going to be long term. Now, with Lamar Jackson, I mean, even if he were not to be with the Baltimore Ravens, I think he'll be fine with another coaching staff. If he goes to another organization, I'm assuming he goes to a spot where they're set up for success. They're going to be able to use his skill set and win some football games. But we are getting to the point where Lamar Jackson's a little older here. Like, it does somewhat make sense why you wouldn't want the Baltimore Ravens, if you're a Baltimore fan, just giving Lamar Jackson, I mean, DeShaun Watson guaranteed money for him to be playing until he's 30, 31 years old with that guaranteed cash, because he is going to be 26 in January. So in about a month, he'll be 26. I don't want to compare him to a running back, but I don't know. I don't know how long-term this playing style is going to translate. And then at 8, we're going to have Kyler Murray. With Kyler, I mean, I think that he's actually going to be better down the stretch. The Arizona Cardinals have just dealt with an obnoxious amount of injuries. Obviously, if you've been watching Hard Knocks, you already know the offensive line injuries. Obviously, if you just pay attention at all, you know Zach Ertz went down for the year. You know Rondale Moore was injured at the beginning of the season. You know DeAndre Hopkins was suspended at the beginning of the season. You knew right when you were getting DeAndre Hopkins back in, Hollywood Brown goes down. Right when we were getting Hollywood Brown back in, then all of a sudden, Rondale Moore gets injured again. Like, it has been obnoxious how this Arizona Cardinals offense has had to deal with some of the worst injury luck possible. I don't know. DeAndre Hopkins is very old. Going back to what we were saying with Keenan Allen, I mean, Hopkins was drafted in 2013 as well. Be a little worried. But dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Tua Tagovailoa at 9. With Tua, looks great. Oh my gosh, from a real life perspective, going back to what we were saying, Tua Tagovailoa right now second in the NFL from an adjusted yards per pass attempt standpoint. I don't care if you want to make an argument this because he has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, or this is the coaching staff, or this is Tua. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Tua is locked into this job, and it's a phenomenal situation. He's taking advantage of it. The reason we're going to have Tua ranked a little bit lower than these other guys is I really don't care about quarterback age. I will say that right now, unless you're looking at those rushing QBs, as we already mentioned. And with Tua Tagovailoa as well, he doesn't have as much rushing upside as literally any other quarterback on this list. Tua has 35 rushing yards so far this season. Every other quarterback ahead of him has more. If Tua had that rushing upside, he definitely would be a tier higher. And Justin Fields, someone with all the rushing upside in the world, but at the end of the day, I know people want to view Justin Fields as if he is some elite level quarterback. And I will admit, I was too low on Justin Fields. 100%, I need to come out here and say it, that Justin Fields is a better fantasy option than I thought he was going to be. 100%, I have to say that. Now, you'll notice Justin Fields is ranked ahead of Trey Lance in this video. But if we're going to be fair here with Fields, while I can admit that from a fantasy football standpoint, the man has over 800 rushing yards this year. The man has been phenomenal. The same time, he has one game with over 200 passing yards. The same time, you have the Chicago Bears dead last in the NFC. Dead last in the NFC with their record. I am not buying into Justin Fields from a real life standpoint. I think when he is starting, he's going to be a player that gives you an obnoxious amount of fantasy points given the rushing upside. I'm worried. Bears dead last in the NFC with their record. Like I said, only one game with 200 or more passing yards. But dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Dak Prescott at 11. With Dak, the issue is the Dallas Cowboys defense is so damn good they never have to throw the ball. I mean, obviously, they're just running in the second half. I'll go back to what we were previously saying. With these pocket passing quarterbacks, I don't really care too much about their age. Like, let's go ahead, get the exact age here for Dak Prescott. I mean, this is a quarterback that is 29 years old, turning 30 this summer. Oh, so you're telling me we get another 6-7 years You're going to be fine in Dynasty. Think about what you were doing 7 years ago and how different your life is. If you have Dak Prescott for that long, you should be fine. And then at 12, we'll go Trevor Lawrence. I mean, going back to what we were discussing, I'm not a massive, I care about age with our quarterbacks, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. With Lawrence, I think we'll be in a better situation next year when we have Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk as the top 2 wide receivers, when we have a fully healthy Travis Etienne the entire offseason. I think that you will have a better situation for Trevor Lawrence. But Lawrence has been bad so far in his NFL career. I mean, obviously, Lawrence was the chosen one. I mean, he was the top high school recruit going to Clemson, wins national titles, the unanimous #1 overall NFL pick, everybody comparing him to, Andrew Luck as a prospect, as people always tend to do. I'm still not sold. He's looked very good over the past 3 weeks. If he continues to play how he has over the past 3 weeks, where over the past 3 weeks he has 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's been averaging almost 300 passing yards. He will move up these rankings, but I need a little bit more from him before we start putting him ahead of guys like Dak or Tua Tagovailoa. He's never going to add Tua. But I think that's all we got for you. Of course, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in the comment section. And also in that comment section, you can find a link to Underdog Fantasy where you can check out all these cool player props. And when you sign up for Underdog with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And only with promo code FLOCK are you going to get access to this special Patrick Mahomes free bet. Super excited about that. But thank you again. I truly do appreciate you. I really hope you have a great day and really hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.